Type this in your browser right now, The Pod Show by Beat Fact Music. We are on Apple, we are on Spotify, and on YouTube. Type in Beat Fact Music and hit the subscribe button. It's time. Trust me, you got everything you need to know about all the shows that are provided by Beat Fact Music. Everything is right there, right in your fingertips. Just hit the subscribe button. Or whatever you do on Spotify, or whatever you do on Apple. It's time. 27-9. The Rams advance to the next round, and they're going to go to Philadelphia. Congratulations to them and to their fans and everybody else who supports them through this ordeal. And, they came to play despite all the obstacles, despite all the stuff going on. They came to play. This is why they deserve the home game. Because the team that came in tonight obviously hasn't showed up since they played their last game in Green Bay, if I'm correct. Green Bay was their last game. Because the game against Detroit, they didn't win that one either. It was supposed to be for the division title and a bye in the first round, which obviously was not in their cards. And it's funny, the two games that they lost in the beginning of their when they started 5-0 was Detroit and the Rams. The last two games that they lost this season, Detroit and the Rams. Does that not tell you guys something about Minnesota? It tells me a lot. It already told me a lot through Sam Darnold. And I'm not going to bash Sam. But what I will say is that Sam Darnold, he is what he is. Whether you guys want to call him names or call him the Jets Sam Darnold or San Francisco Sam or Carolina Sam, doesn't matter. He's a decent C-plus conventional quarterback. Is he going to win you a Super Bowl? If this was the 85 Bears or the great Baltimore defense or the great Tampa Bay defense, then maybe. But when you're telling this guy every single game to throw 30 to 35 times a game, plus, no. And the running game was inept. Coaching was inept. I mean, shout out to Brian Flores. The first drive was pathetic. They calmed down after that. Kevin O'Connell, I don't know what he was doing. He panicked too. Everybody wants to say Sam Darnold panicked. Yes, he did. The offensive line was pathetic. If you haven't watched football and you're just commenting on Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell, you need to watch the game properly. Because we got a lot of these people on social media that don't have anything to do but to make comments because they got nothing going on. The offensive line was absolutely pathetic tonight. If that's not something to address in the offseason, please, you got to fire whoever is up in the office. Kwesi, whoever it is. Offensive line. Left guard and right tackle. Please address that. No further comment. Sam Darnold was eaten alive tonight, and then he just turned into not a pretzel. He shriveled up into like a bad piece of leaf salad. You know when the leaf is dried up and you have to cut it off so you could use the rest of the salad to make a salad? Sorry, cut a piece of leaf off the lettuce, to make a salad? That's exactly what happened to him tonight. He was completely just absolutely overwhelmed, bewildered, scared out of his ass. Excusez-moi. He was just absolutely just out of it. Kevin O'Connell had this duh look in his face, like, what should I do? Like, you're the coach. Sean McVay owned you in week 8, and now he's going to own you again and probably own you for the rest of your career. Why are you coaching in the NFL? The master motivator stuff doesn't work in the playoffs. Coaching works in the playoffs. Coaching what wins in the playoffs. I'm going to say this again, folks. Coaching wins in the playoffs, not master motivating. You could put Sam Darnold on his shoulder and sprinkle water on him like you guys just won the division or the playoffs. You know, since they did that, they have not won a game, and now their season's over. And remember I said that in a previous podcast. I wasn't a fan of that. But, as being a Vikings fan, I'm not a true fan because I made that statement. I've been a fan since 1994, 30 years plus, and I've seen the horrors. The horrors. And this wasn't a horror. This was a joke. They came unprepared. They should have been the most prepared team after what happened in Detroit. And they came so unprepared. Kevin O'Connell has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove. I don't care about the master motivator stuff. What about trying to coach? That's a critical situation. You're down 10-3. Okay, fine. Figure it out. Put something together. Get some type of schemes going. You don't have to change your game plan, but you just have to be consistent and be gritty. But you're picking all these panic plays that you know you don't usually use. You give up the ball on the fourth down in good field position, and the Rams like, you know what? Here, let's score and let's give these guys back the ball. The Rams defense don't play like that consistently. But against the Vikings, if they played like that, if they played the Vikings for 17 games every year, my gosh, they'd be Super Bowl champions. Sean McVay knows exactly what he's doing, and congratulations to him and his staff for doing exactly what to do. They know exactly what pressure points to push, and they did that for the second straight game against them this year. The Vikings don't deserve home games. They don't deserve any of these royalties that people thought they deserved. And I said that. You have to earn it. I had friends ask me, what do I think about the game? I said, stick to your game plan, play how you play, and things will pan out. If you do what you're supposed to do, I said that. It's facts. And then some people ask me, am I confident? I said, it's not confidence. It's facts. Facts will always override confidence. Remember, I said that. The facts were Minnesota did not play well against them the first game because Sean McVay coached a masterful game the first game. He coached a masterful game this time. But mostly it was the defensive coordinator. They rattled Sam. They pushed back on that offensive line, which had no grit. And they did what they're supposed to do. Aaron Jones came banged up, and that's one of the reasons why Green Bay let him go. He can't stay healthy. The running back position is a brutal position in the NFL. I don't know if this could be his last game in the NFL because you're not going to pay for running backs to get hurt and not show up. But shout out to him for being gutsy about it. But at the end of the game, it was just a disaster. The game ended after the first half. 27-9 Minnesota. A lot to unpack for them in the offseason. Do I keep Sam Darnold? Absolutely not. The only way I keep him if he takes $6 or $7 million a year. Anything more than that is an absolute no. So next game, the next order of business, I'm going to talk about this one also. I'm going to talk about Pittsburgh and Baltimore because that's another one that I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game. And my wife is a big Russell fan. So we're watching the game and she's not a football person. She's not a football person. But she'll watch if I'm watching something. Sometimes, I don't want to watch football, but she'll watch. But she loves to watch Russell. She's cheering him on. She says, they look flat. That didn't come out of my mouth. That came out of my wife's mouth. They're getting their butts kicked and they look flat. Then, funny enough, I heard other commentators and analysts say that at halftime. How is it that somebody that's a non-football fan could come out and say that they look flat, and then analysts with years of experience, some of them Super Bowl champions, could say the exact same thing? Pittsburgh was pathetic in that game. Do not be fooled by the 28-14 score. They had no juice at all. Derrick Henry ran to the airport and back. He ran to Washington and came back. He ran circles, did a couple of push-ups and came back. Lamar did what he wanted to do. I'm not going to break down stats for this game either. Now everybody wants Mike Tomlin to get fired and all this other stuff. I'm like, let's calm down. And the whole George Pickens situation. George Pickens has to understand that Mike Tomlin has had his back. Mike Tomlin has had his back, despite the comments and his attitude. George Pickens could be a top 10 receiver in the league if he actually put it in on every play. If he actually put the effort in on every play, he could be, but he doesn't do that. I saw it yesterday too. And I'm pointing out to my wife, I'm like, look at this lazy, you know what? Look at this lazy, you know what? Walking on plays. There's a lot of things to unpack in Pittsburgh also. It's kind of getting a little bit, what's going on here? The quarterback situation, Russ and Justin Fields, I mean, it is what it is. Do you bring them back? Do you not? That's a decision the Pittsburgh front office is going to make. Excuse me, is going to have to make. As far as Mike Tomlin, hell yeah, you bring back Mikey T. You just get rid of some of the people around him. He's going to have to make some decisions himself, but that's the way of the business. But they never stood a chance. I thought this division game would be one of the better games for the weekend, but it was not. And sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want it. So it's playoff football, and I expect teams to play better. And like I said, this weekend was just full of horrible football. Horrible playoff. I wouldn't say horrible, but for the standards of what people are expecting and what some are paying for, this was a disastrous product. This was, no. We expected a couple of good games. And the next game that I'm going to talk about, I mean, it finished with a field goal with a doink off the post. Zane Gonzalez, oh, wow. You talk about anxiety. But, again, Tampa and Washington. That's another game, 23-20. You know, Jaden Daniels did what he had to do, but they only scored 23 points with the ending being a field goal. He's going to be good, but my gosh, if he was fully developed and ready to go, he probably could have put 40 points on. But not with a Todd Bowles defense. Todd Bowles' defense is always going to stand tall. They had a couple of mishaps, and if Baker doesn't fumble that ball, we're talking a different tune right now. That was the turnover of the day right there, was that Baker turnover on the ground. I was like, oh boy. And it just changed the whole landscape of that game. Because there was really no rhythm for Tampa in that game. I mean, Baker didn't really do anything crazy. He didn't turn over the ball in terms of interceptions, but that fumble is very pedestrian-like Baker. Like I said, which Baker's going to show up? Are we going to get the 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 300-something yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks? You guys have heard this before in a podcast. If you haven't been listening, that's on you. I'm not repeating myself like that because these are things that I always talk about, and I think if you pick them out, don't have to believe me, just go look at the stats. Baker, when he's on, forget about it. Lights out. But he just wasn't on. So, and in this case, as you see at the end of the game, this is what we get. So, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, wow, like how do we look at it like this? How do we view it like this? How do we see it like this? You only see it for one way. Washington won the game. Congratulations to Washington. They're moving on to the next round, and that's the end of the day. That's all you could say, and that's all you could do. But I'll say this, Jaden Daniels, he's got a lot to learn. Is he going to have a sophomore jinx, almost something like what C.J. Stroud was having, kind of a little lopsided? But, you know, C.J. Stroud, again, is doing something. And that's my next order of business. Houston and the Chargers. Wow. I think I picked the Chargers to win this one. But Houston, their defense came out. Their defense, Justin Herbert looked absolutely pedestrian-like. And he's been very below average since the season began. Let's be honest. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams. It has not been the same. But they've found ways to win games. But now they found ways to throw picks, which I've correct me if I'm wrong. He threw 4 picks. And when you throw 4 picks, that's kind of something that you got to look at and say, okay, yeah, we lost this playoff game. How do we look at this for next year? Now, does he need some weapons? Maybe he does. But he also needs to play better. I hate when I hear, oh, yeah, they need better weapons. But the quarterback's got to play better too. Sam Darnold had weapons and he lost the game. And the offensive line was trash. So we got to look at it. C.J. Stroud wasn't great either. He threw for, I think, was 282, had a pick, 1 touchdown. But he wasn't great. Nico Collins was, of course, again, I know he had, I think it was 122 for a touchdown. And Lad McConkey had 197 for one touchdown. I mean, these quarterbacks, I don't know. It's not been one of those, and that's going to take me to the next game. And the final score in that game was 32-12. That's it for Houston, sending the Chargers right back to where they belong, and that's home. But the next game is, oh, wow. The disarray of disarray. I don't know how they're doing it. Eagles 22 and the Packers 10. And I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia, but it's not good. You could see the energy, and that's where I'm going to focus more on. I'm not going to focus on Jalen Hurts. Everybody's mad because Jalen Hurts only threw the ball like 21 times. He's not a quarterback like that. And everybody's talking about Jordan Love and his 3 picks. Jordan Love was overrated, overpaid. Most people say he's overpaid. No, that's just the market. Get your money, save your money, be an investor, and take care of yourself. Because once this game doesn't want you, they'll get rid of you. Plain and simple. Jalen Hurts, same thing. Take care of yourself, and you'll be fine. You know, Philadelphia's changed their offense. But I think the biggest takeaway is the stuff going on in Philadelphia when it comes to the teammanship and the whole control of just the mindset of the players and just the whole system. Philadelphia, now people say they shouldn't be here. I don't know how they're surviving. This team does not seem to like each other. There are some players, I've seen some videos where players just kind of just sit away from each other. Like, oh, why do I have to sit beside this guy? You know, you got players reading books on the sideline, coaches looking at each other like, what? But they still find friggin' ways to win. And the joke is they're probably going to beat the Rams next week. They're probably going to beat the Rams. And that's it. They're probably going to beat the Rams next week. They're going to probably beat the Rams. So, I mean, I don't know. And for Green Bay, I mean, Jordan Love was never that good. So, I've never seen him as, I mean, I have him in the same category as Sam Darnold. The only quarterback right now in the NFC North that has any pulse is Jared Goff. Until I see anybody with any kind of stance or any type of consistency and willingness to kind of get to the next level, Jared Goff is the only quarterback in the NFC North. I don't want to hear about anybody else. And I've said that before. I know feelings are hurt, but that's the way it is. Next order of business. The Bills did what they were supposed to do. I can't even argue with this one. I never expected this game to be close, but Denver tried. This was the only team that I felt in the playoffs did not have a chance, but tried their ass off just to try to get something out of this. With the experiences that that they've had the last couple years with, excuse me, guys, I'm just still getting off a cold, and my apologies, or real apologies for that. Denver, man, oh man, oh man. They came and they tried, but sorry again, folks. But Buffalo came in and they did what they were supposed to do. They pulled it off, and that's what it is. And my takeaway from it is, can Buffalo sustain this? Sorry once again, folks. Like I said, I'm coming off the cold. It's cold season, and it's ruthless, especially when you're sick. Back to Buffalo, and my apologies, folks, for that. Buffalo's offense is I can't say anything. They have a lot of weapons. Like, you hear names like James Cook. You got Ty Johnson. You got Ray Davis. You got Curtis Samuel. You got Shakir. You got Dalton Kincaid. You got Knox. You got Johnson. You got Amari Cooper. You got Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins. They got all these guys. You don't know which one of these guys is going to have a big game. I mean, they traded for Amari Cooper, but he only got 2 receptions in that game. And what? He had like 3 targets? He was supposed to be their number one. They don't need a number one. They have a bunch of pieces all over the place. If this Buffalo team and Sean McDermott could get his ass out of his way, he could be walking to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Baltimore is coming to Buffalo. Buffalo has an opportunity to erase some demons, beat Baltimore, and potentially beat Kansas City. And if Kansas City were to shockingly lose to Houston, which I don't think they're going to lose, guess who's coming to Buffalo? Buffalo could have the road to the Super Bowl. So this is an opportunity for the Bills to do what they got to do, because I'm telling you, this is their opportunity. So that's just my takeaway. Buffalo 31-7 over the Broncos. The Broncos have a long way to go, but what steps they took this year, they took some big steps. You know, they took the major cap hit for Russell, but they've managed to do things with it. And before I go on this episode here, I want to talk about what transpired also earlier this afternoon. Of course, everybody should know by now that Mike McCarthy was fired by Dallas, and my whole takeaway on that is Jerry is just completely, he is such a control freak. Because, you know, it's funny because earlier reported there was several teams that were interested in interviewing him, including college teams that are interested in, but he couldn't do nothing. Jerry knew that and continued to hold on to him. This is a lot of people, Dallas fans, I'm going to say this to you all. Now, you all are different. And you have different personalities, different ways of looking at the team. And I'm going to say this to you as all Dallas fans. As long as this man is owning that team, the man who ran out the legendary Jimmy Johnson, one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, you will never win a Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as your owner. It will never happen. He has that old school mentality that is so unbelievably disgusting. He has put his ego so in front of himself, he doesn't understand anything. You didn't want the guy, you should have let him go. Let him go do what he needs to do. And yes, these speculations of teams wanting him, they're not fake, they're true. There are college teams that are interested in him as we speak. He's not a bad coach. He was just under a controlling guy for the last couple of years. I don't know how guys take that job. You didn't see what Bill Parcells did in Dallas? He's like, I'm out of here. What? Jimmy Johnson, what? I'm out of this. Jason Garrett, how has he been since he left? If you're going to coach and then Dion, are you guys crazy? First of all, Jerry does not hire black coaches, number one. And Dion's not going to let him control him. So let's stop that, folks. That's it. Have yourselves a good night. I'll be back next week for the divisional rounds. Peace.